trying to determine the cause of an accident that killed John Denver. The country rock singer died after the experimental plane he was piloting crashed into the Pacific.
The world didn't just lose a famous singer, it lost a story no one truly understood. His songs felt warm and comforting, like everything in his life was perfect. But behind that gentle voice, there were real struggles, quiet pain, and moments he kept hidden from everyone. The people closest to him saw a different side. For years, fans held on to the image they loved, believing it was the whole truth. But it wasn't. Now, after so much time has passed, someone who knew him deeply is finally breaking her silence. And her words don't just bring back memories, they uncover regrets and truths that were never meant to be heard, making you wonder what he was truly feeling all along. Just maybe we never truly knew him at all. The boy who stole everyone's heart. Everyone thought they knew him, but they didn't. To the world, John Denver was the definition of calm. The kind of man who made life feel simple again. But that version of him, that sunshine boy the world loved so much, didn't come from an easy beginning. He wasn't born into comfort. He wasn't raised in a place that felt stable or secure. In fact, his life started with constant movement and quiet tension. Henry John was born in Roswell, New Mexico in 1943. And because of his father's job, the home never stayed the same for long. One city, then another. His father was a strict Air Force pilot, a man who believed more in discipline than emotion. Because of his father's job, the family moved constantly. One place never lasted long. Just when life started to feel normal, it would change again. That kind of life made it hard for him to feel settled. It was difficult to build lasting friendships. It was even harder to feel understood. At home, things were not much easier. His father was distant and tough, not the kind of parent who showed affection easily. That emotional gap stayed with John as he grew up. There was always something missing, something he could not quite explain. Music slowly became the one place where he felt whole. It started quietly, just a way to deal with everything he could not say out loud. But over time, it became something much deeper. When he played the guitar, he felt free. When he sang, he felt heard. Music gave him something steady in a life that kept changing. By the late 1960s, he found his first real opportunity when he joined the Mitchell Trio. It was a folk group that helped him step into the spotlight for the first time. This period shaped him. It taught him how to perform, how to connect with people, and how to turn personal emotions into something others could feel too. Still, this was only the beginning. The real turning point came when he decided to go solo. That decision changed everything. In the 1970s, John Denver didn't just rise to fame, he exploded into it. His music spread everywhere, reaching people across different countries and cultures. His songs became part of everyday life. Take Me Home, Country Roads became one of those songs that people never forgot. It spoke about home in a way that felt simple but powerful. Even people who had never seen those roads felt connected to them. Then came Rocky Mountain High, a song that captured his deep love for nature and the outdoors. It showed a side of him that felt peaceful and free. He continued with songs like Thank God I'm a Country Boy, which brought energy and joy, and Sunshine on My Shoulders, which felt soft and calming. These songs were not just popular. They sold tens of millions of records and became part of people's memories. Families listened to them together, friends sang them out loud. His voice became something people trusted. As his music grew, so did his image. He was no longer just a singer. He became a symbol of something bigger. He cared deeply about the environment and spoke about protecting nature at a time when not many celebrities were doing that. He wanted people to appreciate the beauty of the world around them. That passion made him stand out even more. He also stepped into acting and starred in Oh God, showing that his talent went beyond music. At the same time, he worked as a humanitarian, using his platform to support causes that mattered to him. Everything about his public life seemed positive and inspiring. People began to see him in a certain way. He was calm. He was kind. He was genuine. He felt like someone who truly believed in peace and love. Over time, he earned a nickname that followed him everywhere: the Sunshine Boy. That name captured how people saw him: bright, warm, full of life. He looked like someone who had it all together, someone who had found happiness and wanted to share it with the world. But even in the middle of all that success, something else was quietly taking shape. It was not loud or obvious at first. It did not show in the music or the smile. It stayed hidden behind the image everyone loved. The truth is, while the world saw the light, there were parts of his life that were not so bright. The same boy who once felt alone had not completely left those feelings behind. They were still there, just harder to see now. And as his fame grew bigger, those hidden struggles began to grow too. That is where the story starts to change. The story behind Annie's song. The world calls their love one of the greatest love stories ever told. Because just as John Denver was finding his voice, he also found someone who would change his life in a completely different way. Her name was Annie Martell, and the moment they met, something clicked. It was 1966. John was still performing with the Mitchell Trio, still finding his place in the world, still carrying pieces of that restless childhood with him. Then he walked into a college concert in Minnesota, and there she was. Annie was different. She wasn't trying to stand out. She wasn't loud or attention-seeking. But there was something about her, something calm, steady, and real, that instantly drew him in. In a life that often felt uncertain and constantly moving, Annie felt like stillness, like home. They didn't rush into something dramatic. It started with simple conversations, shared moments, and letters that slowly built a connection neither of them could ignore. But once that connection took hold, everything moved fast. Just 1 year later, in 1967, they were married. To some, it seemed sudden. To them, it felt right, like they had found something rare and didn't want to risk losing it. Their early years together felt almost like a dream you wouldn't want to wake up from. They settled in Aspen, Colorado, surrounded by towering mountains and endless skies. It wasn't just beautiful, it was peaceful, a place where life felt slower, quieter, and more meaningful. There, they built a life that many people could only imagine. They adopted 2 children, Zachary and Anna Kate, and filled their home with warmth, laughter, and music. Annie was more than just John's wife. She was the center of his life, the one he turned to when everything else was too much. As his career took off and the audiences got bigger and the limelight became brighter, Annie was always there for him. In a lot of ways, she became the heart of his music, the quiet muse that gave his songs their honesty and sincerity. But the moment that would change their love story forever didn't happen during a cheerful celebration or a quiet day in Aspen. After a fight, it came. John and Annie had one of their worst fights in 1973. It wasn't tiny or easy to forget. It was the kind of disagreement that makes both participants feel bad, angry, and unsure of what to do next. There were things uttered that couldn't be readily taken back. There were a lot of feelings. John didn't stay to rectify things, he just walked away. He took that stress with him when he left the house and went skiing alone up the mountain. When he sat on the Ajax chairlift high above Aspen, everything around him felt calm. The mountains went on and on in every direction, with snow on them and no noise. The air was calm, and for the first time since the fight, I could think. The fury started to go away slowly. Instead, he felt something deeper: introspection, regret, and a realization of how much Annie meant to him. Then, practically all at once, something amazing happened. The music started, not in bits and pieces, but all at once. The words and melody came together as if they had been waiting for that moment. John started to write one of the most renowned love songs ever, while sitting on the chairlift, surrounded by the stunning splendor of the Alps. The song's core was there in 10 minutes, full, emotive, and impossible to ignore. He didn't think twice about it when he arrived home. He sat down and wrote down everything that came to him in the same way. That tune became Annie's tune. It sounded like pure love to the world, soft, sentimental, and very romantic. The kind of song that makes people feel something right away. It didn't take long for it to get to the top of the charts and reach a lot of people. Over time, it became one of his most famous songs, performed at weddings, special events, and memories that people wished to save forever. But the music wasn't just striking because of how it sounded. It was what it stood for. People thought for a long time that it originated from a place of perfect bliss, a calm way of showing love at its best. But that wasn't the whole tale. There was something far more real underneath the wonderful words. The song was an apology. It was John's way of conveying all he couldn't say during the fight, a way to connect, to heal what was broken, and to remind Annie how much she meant to him. It wasn't only about love, it was also about keeping it when things became tough. And that changes how you hear it, because all of a sudden, it's not simply a great love song. It's a human thing. It shows that even the strongest partnerships may have hard times and arguments. Love isn't always easy or peaceful. It can be messy, emotional, and hard to understand. Their life still appeared wonderful from the outside. A lovely house in Aspen, a growing family, and a love tale that had already touched millions of people. They seemed to have everything anyone could want. But something quieter was starting to change behind that picture. Even while the public witnessed a beautiful love tale, there were already subtle fractures starting to show. Fame, fury, and fractured love. From the outside, everything still looked golden. The music was soaring, the crowds were growing, and the world couldn't get enough of John Denver's gentle voice and heartfelt lyrics. He was the face of peace, love, and simplicity, the kind of artist people trusted. But behind that calm, glowing image, something far more intense was building. Fame didn't arrive quietly. It crashed into his life all at once. The tours became constant. The expectations became heavier. Every performance had to be perfect. Every song had to mean something. And every time he stepped on stage, he wasn't just John anymore. He was John Denver, the man the world expected him to be. That kind of pressure doesn't just disappear when the lights go out. It follows you home. And slowly, it started to change him. The long nights, the endless travel, and the constant need to stay perfect began to wear him down. Alcohol became more than just something occasional. It became a way to cope. a way to quiet the noise, the stress, and the growing pressure inside him. But it didn't solve anything. It only made things harder to control. Because beneath all of that fame, there were wounds that had never fully healed. John had grown up with a father who was strict, distant, and rarely showed affection. That kind of childhood leaves marks. Marks that don't always show on the surface, but can shape how someone handles stress, anger, and even love. As his life became more demanding, those buried emotions began to rise. And when they did, they didn't come out quietly. The gentle folk singer the world adored slowly became a man struggling with something much darker. At home, the arguments between John and Annie became more frequent. What once had been small disagreements started turning into intense emotional fights. Voices were raised. Words became sharper. The peaceful home they had built in Aspen began to feel different, tense, unpredictable, and at times, overwhelming. It wasn't long before this pressure manifested in ways that shocked those closest to him. Annie Martell, his first wife, later revealed the frightening side of John Denver that the public rarely saw. The serene singer became a man tormented by inner demons, and those demons often erupted in moments of fury. Friends described nights of screaming fights so intense they shattered the quiet calm of their Aspen home. Glass clinked against walls, voices ricocheted, and the music of laughter was replaced with tension and fear. One story in particular would go down in infamy. During the bitter stages of their divorce, John reportedly took a chainsaw to their marital bed, cutting it entirely in half. In another scary story, he wrapped the chainsaw cord around Annie's neck after a fight. This is a scary picture for anyone who only knew the singer as a sweet, soft-spoken person. The breaking point had been reached by 1982. John and Annie divorced after being married for 15 years. The problems didn't go away even after Annie and John got a divorce. John tried to find love again with actress Cassandra Delaney. Their public and passionate relationship led to the birth of their daughter, Jessie Bell. But everything kept going the same way. Fame, worry, and unresolved emotional pain loomed over the marriage, making it seem like there was no way out of the tension. People saw success, money, and family life, but there was a thin veneer of actual human weakness behind that. The storm raged on behind closed doors, reminding us that stars shine brightest when they are having a hard time. Annie's response to all of this was quietly brave. Instead of putting on a show, she chose to keep Zachary and Anna Kate safe from the trouble that was going on around their father. She stayed strong and didn't give in to tabloid sensationalism or public interest even after the divorce. John sought affirmation through music, activism, and aviation, whereas Annie sought stability and restoration. She constructed a calm space for herself, which was completely different from the whirlwind of fame that had risen up around John. She became the family's unseen anchor, keeping it from breaking apart totally. John's public life and private life couldn't have been more different. His voice gave millions of people on stage hope and love. When he wasn't on stage, he was unpredictable, restless, and locked in a loop of anger and self-doubt. His passion, intensity, and perfectionism, which made him great, made his inner struggles worse. The arguments and yelling with the chainsaw, as bad as they were, highlight a very essential truth. The life of a celebrity, no matter how dazzling it seems, can hide genuine human vulnerability. Even though John wanted fame and approval, Annie's quiet strength kept strong. She was strong because she chose to heal in private instead of pursuing retribution in public. even though their father was dealing with problems that most people couldn't even begin to fathom. Her decisions made the kids' household a safe and caring place. Divorce, fame, and a short temper all lived together in a tense, unstable balance. This showed that love can exist even when there is fear and chaos, no matter how intense it is. Annie's bravery wasn't loud or dramatic. It was peaceful, protecting, and heroic in its own way. John Denver's life was significantly different during this time. The singer with the sweet voice and golden voice who inspired the world also became a man who was tortured by his own problems. The songs that played all across the world were full of rage, sorrow, and despair. Fame and love couldn't save him from himself, and even while love was strong and lasting, it couldn't calm the storms inside him. But even in the face of all the chaos, Annie Martel's presence reminded everyone that being brave may mean various things to different people. She became the calm defender of a broken family, standing strong against the storms of fame, rage, and broken love. What really happened on October 12th? John Denver's day on October 12, 1997, started off like any other day, but it ended in tragedy that horrified the globe. The artist, who was 53 years old at the time, was still chasing the thrill of flying. His passion for aviation had never been stronger. That day, he got into his brand-new Rutan Long EZ experimental plane at Monterrey Peninsula Airport and was excited to practice touch-and-go landings. To the casual spectator, he looked calm and sure of himself, much like the man who had sung to millions of people with his golden voice. But the calm was not real. It would disappear completely at times. Witnesses later said that the engine sputtered at first in a way that was hard to notice. Then, out of nowhere, the plane dove into the chilly gray waters of Monterrey Bay. The crash happened right away and was very bad. John died right away from multiple blunt force injuries, so there was no time for a mayday call or a chance to get away. People were left confused and in shock when the world lost him in the blink of an eye. How could someone who was so full of life and energy be gone so quickly? Later, investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board would put together the sad chain of events. The cause was heartbreakingly basic and completely human. The pilot made a mistake. John ran out of petrol in one tank and didn't switch to the other in time. The fuel selector valve on the Long EZ was in an inconvenient place behind the pilot's left shoulder, which made him have to make a hard and unnatural move in a split second. It was a little, almost undetectable mistake in the design and a fleeting lapse that cost him his life. The error was so simple, yet the effects were so big that it made the tragedy even more disturbing. As news of the catastrophe spread, so did gossip, rumors, and guesses. Some others wondered if drinking had anything to do with it, pointing to John's past DUIs, which had taken away his medical license to fly lawfully. Some people wondered darkly if there had been intent and if self-harm was possible. Every rumor and headline just made people more confused and sad. But later, toxicology testing would prove that there was no alcohol in his system when he died. The hypotheses, though they kept coming up, were just that. Rumors, not facts. The whole story was quieter, but much more tragic. A man who loved what he did was killed by chance and human mistake. In the middle of all the media attention, Annie Martel stayed calm and dignified. She didn't go to the huge public memorial, where there were a lot of fans and cameras and tears that were seen all over the world. Instead, she chose to remember him in a private way by sending a small wreath with a meaningful note. There were no big gestures, speeches, or public displays of sadness. Annie's grief was private, serious, and close. It showed how deep their relationship was, with love, suffering, forgiveness, and a lasting bond. Even decades after they had divorced, the whole world watched in shock as she carried the whole weight of the truth by herself. John's last flight had a big effect on people all throughout the world, not just in Monterrey Bay. Fans mourned a voice that had defined generations, a musician whose songs had brought them hope, joy, and comfort. Songs like Annie's Song and Rocky Mountain High now seemed more vulnerable and meaningful. The timing was very ironic. A man who had spent his life flying above mountains and whose songs praised light and freedom had fallen in a time of calm, submerged, unseen, except by those who saw the crash. The Sunshine Boy's light had gone out, but the world didn't know the whole story. The picture of John Denver in the cockpit, leaning over to turn the fuel valve, still haunts me decades later. It reminds us that tragedy can be found in simple things and times that seem unimportant until the effects happen. It also reminds us how fragile we are as humans and how one small mistake can end a life that impacted millions. But even if Annie is sad, there is a quiet bravery in her choice to mourn alone, honoring the complexities of their life together without making a big deal out of it. She proved that love doesn't always need attention and that remembering someone may be deep, even when you're quiet. October 12, 1997, was more than just a date. It was the day the world lost a star whose light had seemed to have no end. It was a day that showed how fragile celebrity, skill, and devotion really are. And for Annie Martel, it was a very personal loss that she handled alone, but with unflinching grace. That day, the Sunshine Boy's light went out, but the world kept playing his songs, not knowing the complicated story behind the headlines. The plane, the catastrophe, the rumors, and the quiet sorrow all came together to make a picture of tragedy, human error, and lasting love that would never be fully seen by the millions who loved him from afar. People remember John Denver's last trip, not just because it was so sudden, but also because it revealed some heavy truths, the never-ending search for passion, how easy it is for people to make mistakes, and the quiet dignity of people who love sincerely but have to grieve alone. John's life and death were full of brilliant and weak moments, exciting and serious moments, and high and dismal moments. And in the shadows of Monterey Bay, where the waves are quiet, the full extent of the Sunshine Boy's legacy, both bright and fragile, remains unknown to most, but very real. Then Annie finally speaks. Annie Martel kept quiet about her experience for 25 years, living in the foothills of Aspen. She put all her energy into raising Zachary and Anna Kate, making a quiet life away from the spotlight, and letting John Denver's music speak for itself. People all across the world spoke about it, made up stories, and fans thought they knew the truth. But Annie stayed quiet. Her quiet wasn't empty. It was love, a way to protect her kids and honor the life they had together. Annie, who was 78 years old in October 2022, opted to speak at that moment. She sat down with Mo Roca for the Mobituaries podcast in Aspen, where the same mountains had seen so many happy, sad, and painful experiences. Fans had been waiting decades for this moment, a private look into a life that had always been kept secret by headlines. She spoke honestly and calmly, confirming many of the rumors that had been going about for years. She talked of John's rage, the problems that come with being famous, and the temptations of extended tours, like affairs that caused grief and problems. She talked about times when people yelled, when there were tight silences, and when emotions were so strong that they left wounds. People loved the soft-spoken singer, but he was often tortured behind closed doors by his insecurities and the need to be perfect. Many people were shocked by the narrative behind Annie's song. Many people thought the song was just a love song, but it actually came from a fight. John went skiing alone in Aspen after a big fight. While riding the chairlift, with mountains and snow all about, I got an idea. He wrote the tune and lyrics in 10 minutes as a means to say sorry and ask for forgiveness. The love in the song was true, but it came from grief and the work it took to make things right. Annie divulged a secret that no one else knew. They made up in private months before John's awful crash. They spoke, cried, and had a moment of understanding late one night. John played Perhaps Love, praying for forgiveness and peace. Annie kept this experience to herself for decades, keeping both him and their kids safe. It was a loving gesture, a means to protect something private and sacred. She told him why she had been quiet for so long. It was about keeping her family safe, letting them heal, and keeping John's music beautiful. Her comments weren't mean, they were honest and full of affection that will last. She now lives in Aspen at the age of 79, and she is still moved by his music and the memories they made together. Music still comforts her by bringing back memories of both the good and bad times they had together. Annie's voice has changed John Denver's legacy from just a song and celebrity to much more. It is about being open, forgiving, and loving someone even after they hurt you or have lost you. The light he brought into the world may have gone out too soon, but it still shines through her tale. Annie's bravery lets the world know the whole truth about his life, errors and brilliance. The man who sang the world's sweetest songs hid storms behind every note. Annie finally lifts the veil on love, rage, and secrets no one expected. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to uncover more shocking stories that shake everything you thought you knew. The truth is darker, deeper, and more unforgettable than the legend itself. Don't miss it.